Hi, thank you for joining our webinar today. Today I will show you the new features to import compelling models into the Auralizer. My name is Alessia, and we will start from the model of a classroom that is one of our demo models that you can find in the web app. If we look at this model, it is a model optimized for acoustic simulations. The features are not very interesting visually, but you cannot currently visualize the textures that you can still attach to this model, even if it's simple. So right now, the first step that I'm going to show you is how to modify the textures of this model and export the model with different textures. So if we click on one of these simple surfaces, for example, the table, we notice that there are two faces with two textures. If we paint one of them with a material from the database, we notice immediately that only one of the two is painted. So if we want to paint both of the faces with the material, we have to do something like reverse faces and paint the other face. A fast way to paint all the faces with the same material in the model is to select all with same material, and then paint. But even in this case, we notice that not all the faces will be painted. So we have to do again reverse faces and then paint again with the material. And we can see from the entity info dialog that all of the faces are now painted with the material we want. Another way to make the model look better is to replace the simple faces with a more interesting geometry. So we could design another chair, or we can use the functionalities of the 3D warehouse and import a predefined component. If we want to import a component, it would be better to replace all the existing components with the definition chair in the model. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You can select all the faces in the chair that are connected with 3 clicks, and then we can use a layer for this, for example, one I made called chair component. And if we move these existing faces to the chair component tag, we will make sure that they're not mixing up, and we can click on the right button and make component on the same layer. So we call this chair component. We replace the selection with the component, and now we have a very simple chair component. Now what I'm going to do, I will make few copies of this. I click Ctrl so that I'm copying. Then I take a point and I copy again. And let's just make this as an example. So now that we have our components, we're going to be inside the component and go to the 3D warehouse. And here we can search for the models we want to replace the chair with. So in this case, we're going to look for a school chair. And we have many options available. I like this one that is quite simple and looks like a real school chair. And we can answer yes when it's asking to load this directly into the Sketchup model. Otherwise, it will be saved as a separate file. Now that we do this, we have the chair here available, and we can just place it inside our component. And we can see that all the other chairs are automatically updated where other components were placed. So now we just need to move it a little bit further so that it matches the existing chair. And what we should do is to select the older surfaces that were here and delete them. So in this case, I only made 3 components for this chair. And if I had replaced already all the chairs with components, then all the chairs would have been changed automatically. Another interesting feature of Sketchup is the possibility to import materials and add them to your database. So as we use the 3D warehouse to import a component, we can use it to search for materials. So if we look for metal and then use the tag materials, we can find much greater selection than what you have with your original version of SketchUp. There are very interesting textures. If we import it, we just click download. And then we can select a surface and paint with the paint bucket. Of course, the material needs to be painted on both sides. Otherwise, when you export the GLB file, you might have problems in the visualization. So you reverse the faces and you paint again. This material is not just what you see, but it can be slightly colored. So if we look at, if we click on the one of these two squares here, where the texture is showing up, we can make another version of the material. So we can add the material here in the material tag, or we can make a new copy with a different color. So if I want a material that looks a little bit more green or more red, or even change the texture, we can do all our edits and save it as another material and apply it to the model. In this case, the original one was good enough. If we want to export the model for visual purposes, these windows that you see here that have a blue color, they will not be visualized properly because they have two different materials assigned. So first we need to apply the same layer. And more importantly, if you want the shadows to pass through the windows, what I recommend doing is to take the whole window layer and just hide it when you are exporting the model. Next, I will show you how to export the GLB file from a more detailed model. Now I will show you a very different model, a model that represents our previous office on the 5th floor. And as you can see, it is rich of details. You have the geometries that are rounded, they have textures, the textures represent materials where the light is scattered differently, the curtains are rounded, and so on. Before, it was not possible to see this model on top of the acoustic simulations, but now you can export this model as a very compact file format and just import it and overlay it on top of your auralizations. Here we can look at all the details that this model has. It has some objects like plants, furniture that has a very specific designer. The windows have a lot of details, and all this will be kept in the model that you want to export. In order to do so, we go to File in SketchUp. If you have the Pro version, you will also see Export, 3D Model, and a series of file extensions. Among these, you should be able to see GLTF binary file, which is the file extension you need to import a file into the Treble Auralizer. So here we just give a name and the model will be exported with this name. I'm not going to start this because it might take a while to export all the textures in this model, but I have already some exports pre-made. Here we are in Treble and we can see the acoustic model of the same office we have seen previously in SketchUp. This acoustic model has very simplified features, but it's the same geometry, and it is also placed in the same origin. What we can do now, we're going to launch the Auralizer, and you can see that immediately I have the render model linked to this simulation. What you can do if you don't have this already linked is you just add the simulation, and then we pick a simulation that doesn't have the model already linked. For example, this one. Here you have a small icon that will appear saying Upload Render Model. So you will be able to just browse among your exported GLB files So in this case, I'm going to upload the office without the dividers. In order to do this versioning of the model, you have to export the model first without the dividers and then without the dividers from SketchUp. So once this icon is spinning like this, you should be able to just close this window and keep doing what you were doing before. So now we can have a look at the model that I have previously uploaded. The model has all the features that you have seen in the previous SketchUp window. So all the materials we have assigned, the plants. Let's see if we can just pick at it from here. The materials assigned to the guitars, the textures assigned to the books. And this is also a way to maintain the work that has been put into assigning nice graphics to a model. You can, of course, navigate using the receiver's positions that you have previously assigned. And now we're going to take a look at the options where you can control a bit more the graphics of the render model. If you want to do so, you click on the icon, Render Model Settings, and a panel opens up with the details of the model. So you can upload a new model if you want, or you can delete the model. It is important to know that every simulation can be matched right now only with one model. So the model will be assigned to the simulation. Here you have a toggle saying manual alignment, which allows you to move the acoustic model, move the render model on top of the acoustic model if you need to do so. So in this case, they were actually matching very well, as you can see, because they were both placed with the origin at the right place. If you don't have access to the editing of the original visual model, then you can use this feature to align the two models. Next, we can remove the wireframe by closing the panel and open it again, and have a look at the environment features. If we look at the sky outside, we see that there are some clouds. And if we change the sky, there are different clouds. This difference in the background is not just a difference in texture, but is also a difference in the lighting inside the model. So if we remove the background, you will still be able to see the different lighting by cycling to the available options. As you can see, Sunset City has a warmer tone. Starry Night is a bit colder and dark, like at dusk. And Forest has more of a kind of countryside vibe that you can enhance by looking at some greenery outside. What is important is to use settings that you can preserve across the models that you're going to match with the simulations. So in this case, let's go back to blue sky maybe. And let's adjust the brightness and the light intensity. Maybe I like 56 as brightness. And we can also control the light direction. If we go to another spot, we can see that there is some light that is coming from the window. And this is possible thanks to this toggle called shadow casting. If we remove the toggle, the light will not be projected inside according to the openings in the windows. As I was explaining before, this is possible if you hide the actual surface that is in the windows, because if you leave the window on, the light will be much more diffuse. Still a really nice effect. So you can control the light direction using this controller with an arch, and you can control the light kind of orientation where it's coming from with this other cube controller. You can also, of course, use the input numbers to make sure that this is matching some other previous assignment for the model. And this is it for the settings. Now we can have a look at the two models. So if we click at the first simulation and the second simulation, we can see that this model seems not to have the shadows. So let's have a look and see if this is being set. We can see that this hasn't been set in the panel, so we just apply it. And we assign the same numbers that we have assigned before. And now the two models are matching. If we go to another receiver position in the model, we can see that this model has no dividers, while this other one has the dividers. And in this way, you can compare the simulations that you have previously run, showing to the customer the differences in the geometry features that are present both in the acoustic model and in the visual model. Now that we have created an auralization with a comparison between two scenes, we can also share it with our customers or our colleagues. First, we want to save the preset. For example, we say Office Webinar 5th floor to make sure we don't have other simulations with the same name. And then we click on Share. And we type the email of the person we want to assign it to, or we generate a link that can be just copied and pasted in the browser, like as simple as this. So right now, I want to show you another model that is also representing a very nice geometry. This is a church that has been scanned with a Lidar scan. And you can now import also Lidar scans exported as a GLB format and overlay them on top of your acoustic simulations. And if you were making some surveys and you have a scan made from a phone and you have access to this kind of data, it is very interesting to have this possibility to make an acoustic simulation and overlay on top of that the scan. So we just click on the Auralizer. This is a very simple model I made just for demonstration purposes. It's kind of the empty void of the church. It's not supposed to be a real acoustic simulation. And we can see now that the icon is spinning and it's loading the model that I have attached to this simulation. So once the simulation is loaded, it will show up as rendered here. So we click on rendered. And here we can see the outside of this church. So this is the projection of the inside to the outside. So if we just look at the interiors, this is how it looks like. It's a very characteristic Norwegian church. And right now you will be able to create auralizations and share them and share together with them also the visual scene that is kind of made for that perspectives. So let's have a look at how you could do this. For example, we want to put some choir load, and then if we want to share this, generate a link, we copy the link, and the church will be shown in the auralization preset. So here you can see how I have the visuals of my church and I have access to the auralization. So now I will show you how the model looks like in the shared auralization window. I've prepared some sources for the soundscape scene of the office that you have seen earlier. We can see how the chairs, the armchairs look very defined, the leather sofa. Let's have a look at the back of the scene, the guitars and the light, the plants and the sky. Yeah. So now we can take a look at the different receiver positions and start our auralization.
Cette île nordique fascine par sa beauté naturelle, brute, ses paysages dépaysants. Vous serez accueillis par la glace.
As I was showing you earlier, it is possible to compare the two graphic conditions of the model, and this will be reflected also in the simulations that you are comparing. You can also switch between the acoustic model and the render model if you wish to do so.
Paradis pour les amoureux de la faune. Vous pourrez observer des macaques, des renards arctiques et même des baleines.
Já, sko, við ætlum að skjóta auglýsingu sem að mun örugglega kosta samtals 20 milljónir. Þetta við erum alveg með nóg pening.
So this is the end of our presentation for today. We hope you enjoyed the new feature in the Auralizer.